What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Bro History. It's Henry Zamota and Danny Abdel-Jabbar. What's up, Danny? How's it going, my man?
Chilling, man, as per usual. How about yourself?
Pretty good. I'm coming off the COVID.
Yeah, I know. I heard
second
bout.
of COVID. Yeah. Well, it's been 2 years.
Yeah, that's wild, man. I didn't even know that was still a thing.
Yeah, I did not either. But it's way. When I got COVID 2 years ago, I wasn't really that sick. I was probably sicker this time, but my son got it. My son's a baby, and then my wife got it, which obviously when a baby gets it, it's a lot scarier because he had a high fever. But everything worked out. He had a fever for like one night, and then he beat right through it, and now he's just as hyper as ever. He's actually even more hyper, which is
he gained like a superpower out of it,
and he's more destructive now. So it's only made him the virus is making him more powerful. Like he figured out how to open up the safety gate.
Oh Jesus!
The stupid safety gate we get. I mean, it's not that expensive. It's like $100, but it's supposed to be baby proof. There's clamps, and he figured out how to open it, and now he just opens it like he owns a place.
I got a weird question. Do they have like baby versions of the COVID jab?
I don't know. I mean, he's not vaccinated.
Right. I mean, I figured you have to be like at least a certain age to get it, but like I was just wondering because like I don't have kids, and also I haven't thought about COVID in so long, so it's just kind of suddenly popped up into my head. Like, is that a thing?
My son didn't get a COVID vaccination, so I don't know, maybe. I think I told the doctors out front like we don't want him to have it, but I mean he had it and he's fine.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better because we have podcasting to do. But before we jump into the main spicier topic, I just wanted to say, like, dude, I think we're living in the weirdest timeline. Like everything is just weird, strange, odd. Like you could think of it in a bad way. You know, a lot of people have a lot of doom and gloom over it. But when I look at some of these things, I'm just like, I can't help but laugh a little bit. I want to read to you a news notification that I got on my phone today. Literally made me laugh out loud. RFK Jr. says a worm ate part of his brain and then died inside his head. I just wanted to get your take on that.
It's the mind flayer from Rabbi Shmuley.
Seriously. Except in this case, the mind flayer died because of like, I don't know, absence of something to eat or like poison rot in his brain. This, ladies and gentlemen, is probably the biggest or most well-known third party possible for this election. We've got, a super old guy, a guy who's probably going to jail, and a guy who a parasite died in his brain because it ate his brain. These are the options that we have.
No, they're all old guys. RFK Jr. actually looks really good because he's on some sort
Botox.
of juice. Well, he's on some type of drug, but honestly, that's a testament or an advertisement for taking like a testosterone or whatever he's on when you're in your 70s because he looks pretty good. However, man, he's had a lifelong, he's had a life of hard drug use and sex addiction and shit like that. Who knows what happened to his brain.
He was
or maybe a mind flayer.
It puts a lot of the shit that like weird shit that he said and done into context for me, because if this has anything to do with like traumatic brain injury from this worm that was in his brain, then that kind of makes a lot of sense. Like recently he was like lauding the fact that Kevin Spacey gave him a shining endorsement. Like what the fuck? Kevin Spacey? You're proud of Kevin Spacey's endorsement?
Yeah, that was a weird one. Why would you want him
super weird, dude?
Anything that you do.
Yeah. I mean, you could, like, maybe he likes Kevin Spacey on a personal level and he was proud to get Kevin Spacey's endorsement. Keep that shit to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, that's not like a newsworthy thing, We're just on the weirdest fucking timeline, man. It's just fucking weird.
Yeah, the other weird thing is John Fetterman, man, he is something else, man. I've never seen a U.S. Senator just so brain dead. Like this guy.
Maybe he has.
I mean, it's not just that he had a stroke and all that. And obviously, I'm the one to talk about speech impediments because I do have a minor one myself.
Right.
However, this guy, it's not what he says. Well, actually, it is what he says because he is an idiot. But without being, having the stroke and having the brain damage, the way he dresses in public is just enough to be like, what the fuck? Like, do you have
Dude,
any
I'm
respect?
fine with the way he dresses.
Do you
He
have
can...
any self-respect for yourself and this country that you represent?
I don't think that's a problem. I think it's a problem that
like
we judge people by the way that they dress.
You dress like a fucking 12-year-old skater. Like,
Dude,
what?
if I was a U.S. senator, God forbid, right? But if I was a U.S. senator, I wouldn't fucking dress up in suits everywhere all the time either. You would catch me wearing, maybe I'd dress better than John Fetterman, but I certainly wouldn't be wearing suits and all this other prim and proper nonsense all the time.
If I saw John Fetterman in my community and I didn't know who he was, I would call the police and say we have like a suspicious looking man. I think most people would. Like, I'd be like, what? Well, who's this man walking around? Is he trying to sell like security systems? No, like he doesn't belong here. Call the police. He's gonna like that would be my first. If I saw him walking around, I didn't know who he was. I would call the police and say there's a suspicious looking man in our neighborhood, and he doesn't live here, and he's not selling security systems. Please come here. He looks like a mess, a complete mess. And yeah, I get it. You don't want to wear suits everywhere. No one likes to wear suits everywhere. I'm not saying you have to, but if you're a representative,
sounds like you're saying he has to.
If you're a public servant, wear a fucking polo or something. Wear a fucking button down. Look presentable in public. Don't look like a fucking slob. Oh, it pisses me off so much the way he dresses.
I have, dude. You and I can agree on so many other things that is wrong with John Fetterman, other than the fact that he dresses like a slob. Like, I think that's the least of our worries here. I think there's plenty of other places to hit this guy. I don't think the way he dresses is going to be
it's low hanging fruit. I will say that. So let's not spend too much time on it because we will be talking about his number one patron. And that will be the Israel lobby today.
That's right.
And some other things, but I guess
you want to just jump in.
Yeah, we can jump in. Today's episode we're going to talk about. It's going to be sort of a current event episode, but then we're going to talk about really the broader history of anti-Semitism, which is in the news right now, and hopefully make people think. But why don't we start with what is going on in Rafah?
Sounds good. Well, on just a couple days ago, on May 6th, Hamas announced that it had agreed to the terms of a ceasefire or hostage deal that was brokered by the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar. But hours earlier, Israel signaled plans to begin a limited military incursion into Rafah, which is the city in southern Gaza. And it is also Hamas's last remaining stronghold in the territory. So Israel carried out a military operation on several specific targets in that Rafah area and has held off from accepting those latest proposals from Hamas, claiming that the text of that proposal doesn't align with the previous versions of those proposals. Now, why does this matter? I think so. Israel and Hamas are both under heavy pressure from the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar, and their respective mediators to reach a deal on a ceasefire and avoid an assault on Rafah. Egypt, in particular, is afraid of a flood of Gazan refugees coming into its border because this is the last patch of land that something like 1.5 million people are on right now, and if there's a massive incursion into that, then where else do they go?
Yeah, and people are saying like, well, even Egypt doesn't want the Palestinians. They must be extra bad, right? They must be extra scary.
Anyone
Muslims.
wants 1.5 million anyone's in
nobody knows. Not even developed states can take that amount of refugees in that short of a time span.
That's right. It would make our southern border crisis look like a joke. Like getting 1.5 million people immediately. Nah, that would be terrible.
And not just like economic migrants, like war refugees.
That's right.
Within their ranks, there's going to be Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas type guys too, who
sure.
are enemies of the state.
And there are security concerns and mixed in with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Egypt is on complete life support. They're they're not very far from being a failed state. Like, they're completely dependent on aid. Like, they wouldn't be able to sustain that a refugee. And what would most likely happen is that the United States would have to just foot the entire bill for it. Like, they'd have to heavily pay Egypt off.
Right. Just to accept that. And we can't accept that, right? We've got our own debts and our own issues to begin with. We couldn't possibly foot that bill either. But yeah, I mean, according to a lot of people, Israel's probably practically done with the bulk of its Gaza campaign. This happens to just be the last little bit, I think, from the conservative estimates that I've been seeing. There's like 2 battalions worth of Hamas fighters and a bunch of high level people. Although I'd argue that all the high level people are probably already gone. But yeah, I mean, Israel also thinks that a lot of the Israeli hostages are being kept in Rafah as well, which gives them a reason to want to go in there. In Israel, there are calls, to prioritize freeing the 130 remaining hostages and accept the ceasefire. But, many of those hostages realistically are probably dead. Even Hamas has suggested as much when they said in their ceasefire position that they would be willing to give up 30 hostages, including some that are dead. They didn't specify how many of those 30 were dead. Right now, it looks like Netanyahu seems to be more concerned about maintaining the cohesion of his extreme right religious coalition government rather than, humanitarian pause for the obvious. But many of, his members of the extreme right religious coalition government that he's formed are opposed to any ceasefire deal and are very, very keen on pushing to pursue the war to the very end, to the elimination of Hamas, which in some respects can be understandable, right? Given the situation. But in recent days, they've been hinting at quitting the coalition government, which would trigger an early election in Israel. And as a result, we're postulating here that Netanyahu has vowed to attack Rafah. I think, if I've read this correctly, he was going to do it with or without a ceasefire deal. So I think he's doing it one way or another. And the decision to press forward in Rafah is obviously in opposition to international and specifically U.S. worries about civilian casualties in the Rafah invasion. Biden did an interview with CNN super recently, and he said that the U.S. was still committed to Israel's defense and would still supply Iron Dome rocket interceptors and other defensive arms, but that if Israel goes into Rafah, that they're not going to supply weapons or artillery shells used for that. So the U.S. basically said that, hey, we don't see concrete plans to safeguard these civilians, so they paused a delivery of very specific high-yield weapons to Israel. The shipment included 1,800 2,000-pound bombs and 1,700 500-pound bombs, so it's quite a lot of ordnance. The worry here, of course, is that these munitions would be used against civilians, or at least in a manner that would harm civilians. So the U.S. basically paused the delivery of those to put pressure on Israel to come up with a good plan to protect those civilians. And I guess to some credit, Israel took some preliminary steps. They bombed a lot of specific targets in eastern Rafah, and then also did, airdropped leaflets telling civilians to evacuate an area. I think they told them to push forward like 3 or 4 miles out of the way, and that was relatively good in it, and it gave them the ability to advance. So I guess that's a positive step in the right direction. But in response to this incursion, Hamas launched a rocket attack on the Kerem Shalom crossing, which was used as an aid route, where Israeli troops were gathered. They ended up killing 4 of them, but then pretty much as soon as they did that attack, they suddenly announced that they accepted the ceasefire proposal, almost like saying, hey, we got the last shot in before the ceasefire proposal, which is a little bit underhanded, but, nevertheless, I guess it's a step in the right direction. I don't know. It's hard to call balls and strikes on this one. So Israeli tanks ultimately did enter Rafah, and as of today, Israel has captured both the Kerem Shalom and Rafah crossings between Gaza and Egypt, and the aid has been halted through those points of entry, which obviously makes the humanitarian crisis worse. And I watched a video today that was released today by the IDF that showed some aid trucks at the newly opened Kerem Shalom crossing, but it was almost kind of like a joke. There was literally in this drone video, there's 6 total trucks in the video, which is obviously not enough trucks for the 1.5 million people that live there. Nevertheless, though, they say that it's open, so I guess it's open. Rafah crossing, unfortunately, though, still closed as of whenever it is that we're recording right now. According to the nearby Kuwait hospital in Gaza, 27 bodies and 150 wounded people have been brought to that hospital since the Israeli tanks entered the city. And the Israeli military, on the other hand, say that it killed about 20 people in Rafah, and they described them as dead Hamas militants. So kind of hard to, circle that square. I'm not sure who's telling the truth, or if maybe they're both telling the truth, but, one is not the entire truth. I don't know. Nevertheless, though, I think the Israeli government has agreed to send a delegation to Egypt for further talks, while also still moving the tanks and the troops into Gaza and closing the Egyptian border. So it's tense,
Yeah, and so in the Rafah crossing, so there was a deal that was made where it's going to be managed by a private U.S. security firm.
Which one?
I'm not sure. It's not out yet, but it's a private firm. So, I mean, they're going to be, U.S. assets who are, their job is going to be, is going to make sure that there's no militants that are crossing the border, and then administering aid and all that stuff. So, it's going to be U.S. mercenaries.
Right.
So we'll see. There was just a Haaretz article that was released on this. So I don't think the information about who is doing it, but that seems to be the game plan. But I guess, the big thing that is, it's obviously horrible, and it does seem, and last time we spoke, I had said that it does seem like everything is winding down. Like there's a lot of signals that things are winding down, and there's enough international pressure to prevent a full-on ethnic cleansing of everyone in Rafah into Egypt. But there's still bombings going on. There's still people who are dying. If you're just scrolling through any social, well, mainly probably Twitter or Telegram, you're going to see a lot of dead children.
Yep.
So it's still going on. This ceasefire, it would start off as a 6-week ceasefire. After 6 weeks, a ceasefire like that, it's hard to break it. You know what I mean? It's hard to be the aggressor and break that and face off with international opinion. So hopefully that deal gets done. It seems like the withdrawing of the ammunition is a signal to stop it, but still Biden publicly is we give Israel unwavering support. We're their number one ally. We have a special relationship, yada, yada, yada. So it's, who knows? And it's the Israeli government is so unpredictable because it's so radical that, and also
I don't actually think it's unpredictable. I think it's very predictable. They telegraph what they're about to do. Just today, Gallant, the Minister of Defense, Gallant, he was saying that we will not stop entering Rafah until we start seeing hostages being turned over. So, and I believe him. I believe that's exactly what he's going to do. And if you look at the beginning of this war, they said exactly what they were going to do. They were going to exact a price that they're going to level Gaza, and they did. They have. I don't think they're unpredictable anymore. I think they're very predictable.
This isn't in the U.S. press, but in Hebrew press, there is the president or the chairman of World Likud, which is like the international arm of the Likud party. Mm-hmm. He was on Hebrew or Israeli television saying shit that was just like crazy. Just like, kill them all. We need to kill them all. We don't stop until they're all dead. Just like saying straight up, that type of stuff is like the type of stuff that I guess the ICGA or it would be tracking if they're gonna be throwing charges on Netanyahu and I guess some of the generals, because apparently, I don't know how true this is, but what I was reading today is that Netanyahu's kind of freaked about this indictment. Like this is something he's concerned about. In reality, there's probably going to not be any teeth regarding an indictment, a criminal indictment, but I was reading that, people in his administration or that he's actually worried about it. Who knows what the truth is? But I mean, he's in a pretty difficult situation because, the more normal, I don't know if any of them are normal, but the more moderate in comparison arm of his coalition, they do want the deal. Mm-hmm. They do want to make a deal. And then obviously the real radical far right wing, they don't want a deal at all. But I think if you look at the percentages in Israel right now, that there's a higher percentage of people who want to kind of wrap this up in Israel and get the hostages back than go on with the campaign in Rafah. So there could be enough political pressure, but I guess it depends. Well, we'll see. If
I honestly think it's going to happen one way or another where this comes to an end, because either the political pressure is enough to bring this to a close, or Israel literally just runs out of things to blow up. I mean, we were just talking about this before we started recording, and I actually found a source for it. It was through Barron's, and they reported just 2 days ago that a guy, a PhD candidate at the City University of New York, who has been researching satellite imagery of Gaza, found that it was 74.5% destroyed. The buildings in Gaza. 74.5%, let's call it 75%, just to make it easy. For some context, right, that's like an incredibly high number, right, of the buildings in a major city that's like a majorly populated city to be destroyed. For some context, they wrote that another really big giant bombing was Dresden, right? Everyone talks about in World War II, the bombardment of Dresden. We basically leveled that city. And that one, by the estimates, are 56.9%. So, make that comparison. This is Gaza's destruction is currently worse by percentage than Dresden.
Yeah, it's wild.
So I think they're just going to run out of shit to blow up, right? So it's just going to come to a close one way or another.
It's wild, and it's hard to imagine just all these refugees pouring into Egypt. It's hard to even picture that happening. Mm-hmm. It would just be insane. Like it would be the most insane thing that we've probably witnessed in our life. It's like,
realistically,
seeing all these people just ethnically cleansed into Egypt. Like I don't even know.
Do you think some of them would ultimately have to go into Israel? At least some of them would have to, right?
No, none of them would go into Israel. Are you kidding me? You mean the state of Israel? Like the actual
the state
Jewish
of Israel, yeah.
State? Like, no, yeah. The people in Gaza?
Yeah.
Hell no, they wouldn't be allowed in Israel.
So somehow they'd be allowed into Egypt, though?
I mean, do you think the Israeli government would let anyone in there go into that state, into Israel? They wouldn't even be allowed in the West Bank, let alone go into Israel, into the state.
Are they going to kill them if they tried?
Yeah, they would kill. Yeah, they absolutely kill them. They would absolutely kill them if they ran. Are you after October 7th when people blew when Hamas jumped the fence or blew up parts of the wall, and they would kill.
Parachuted in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that the only physical place that they would be going would be probably into Egypt, and then they would be put in a boat and they would be shipped to the Western countries, or maybe Turkey. I mean, I don't think Turkey would allow it.
I read that the U.S. would be open to bringing in some Palestinians with family here in the U.S. But that could be a giant diaspora.
It's like the most just thing. The thing is though, like the most just thing, and immigration hawks don't want this, but like since the U.S. supports all this, the United States should bear responsibility and like give these people some sort of reparations for what they had to endure. It wouldn't be good for the U.S., but it's like that would probably be the most just thing and maybe the most positive outcome for those people who ended up in the United States. However, it's like, why the fuck should they have to leave? But like, also, why the fuck would you want to stay there? Like, I would never want to. I would want to get the hell as far as away. If I was from Gaza, I'd rather live in North Korea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think they have polling right now in Gaza, but I'd imagine that a decent percentage of them, if given the chance, would leave.
Yeah, I mean that's like how could you even think about staying? Like, there's nothing to stay for. Like, everything is destroyed.
Right, 75% of it is gone.
You'll probably get cancer from just breathing in all the munitions and all the destroyed, buildings and electrical shit and furniture and all that stuff. All these people are probably at risk of cancer.
The waste and the garbage,
giant
and
burn pits.
Health. There's no hospitals. Shit like that. Yeah, everything's gone.
But so, I want to jump into the domestic front.
Okay.
Because when I say domestic, U.S. domestic, and now it's actually spreading to other countries as well. But these college protests,
right?
So schools around the world, started off in Columbia, mostly Ivy League schools. Now it's across universities all around the country. Now there's a big protest in Amsterdam. I don't know if you saw that.
Canada, other places as well. Yeah.
So it's just like how there were Black Lives Matter protests, like there were Black Lives Matter protests in Amsterdam and stuff. I don't know why, because there's not many black people who live there. But these protests are starting up everywhere. And in response, we were talking about this before we started the show. I think for the most part, these protests seem fine and reasonable. Obviously, the kids who were, anyone who was taking part in destroying property or there was like a group in Colombia, I think that commandeered a building or something, or
that's right. Yeah,
locked themselves in a building.
They broke into the building.
Those kids should obviously be disciplined by their university, or if they did anything, or if they destroyed any property,
Right, they should face repercussions for that. I'm all for the protests. I think it's fine and constitutionally protected to want a ceasefire, of all things. Now, we can have conversations all day about whether elements of those protesters are spewing anti-Semitic things or whether they're calling for, death to Jews. We can also talk all day about counter-protesters and also them saying death to Jews in a mocking way, and that, kind of hitting the news in a way to, make the protests look bad. We could talk about all the different angles of that, but at the end of the day, it is constitutionally protected to protest.
Yeah, and there's a lot of hysteria being blown. So, you had mentioned, you said earlier there was somebody who yelled death to Jews at one of these protests, And
Yeah,
everyone
it's
ran
just-
with it. They were like, "Oh, well, they're saying death to Jews. They're saying death to Jews. So we need
Right.
to, these are anti-Semitic Hamas, and some of them are Nazis as well."
Right.
And it turns out the person who yelled death to Jews was a Zionist counter-protester who
Right.
was saying it mockingly. He was like, "What are you going to say, death to Jews?" So that was uttered, and then the press ran with it, saying that, "Oh, these kids were chanting death
Right.
to Jews."
Now, undeniably, there are people, actual people, in these, pro-Palestinian protests who harbor and hold and disseminate legitimately anti-Semitic things. As a matter of fact,
Yeah,
like,
but I have
one of
actually
the-
seen no evidence of that, to be completely
I
honest.
actually have. I actually have. So I intentionally look for this kind of shit because I'm trying to see like where is it fucked up on both sides. And I was looking at it, and they had broken up one of these encampments in Colombia, and among the evidence that they had that they were taking pictures of was a bunch of flyers that were pro-Palestinian in nature, but among the words in these flyers was "death to the USA" and "death to Israel," and that's just not cool. You can also just see a ton of these images that are surfacing, and by a ton I mean a handful. Let's be real. This isn't like thousands of these pictures come up. There's literally a handful of these instances that are leaking online, and then they are used as cannon fodder to invalidate the entire protest, right? So the one that I'm specifically referring to is an image of a young gentleman who I'm assuming is either Palestinian or Arab based on the way that he looks. And he's inside of this protest, and he's holding up his phone, and on the phone itself is a literal Nazi flag, right? And he's brandishing that towards the counter protesters who are obviously Jewish, or at least sympathetic to the Jewish cause, right? So like that's fucked up. But again, when we take a look at this and how this shows up, I think I kind of want to put a pin in this, right? I want to put a pin in this because we're going to talk a little bit about this bill that just came out to basically curtail these protests. And there is a specific part in the definition of what constitutes anti-Semitism that I think can be relevantly applied to how it is that we view protesters of Israel. So I'll leave it at that. Why don't you tell us about this this bill?
Yeah. So the bill. Well, let me just add one more thing to what you said because I don't want to forget this.
Okay.
So in one of these protest encampments, the NYPD found a book called Terrorism. It was
Yeah, I saw that.
Terrorism, a short introduction, and it's by it's by Charles Townshend, who's who's like a dorky British academic,
Right.
and they're like, "Look what we found here.
They think it's like terrorism for dummies.
These guys are. This is a terrorism handbook."
Right.
Are you kidding
I
me?
saw that actually.
Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
You are an uneducated rube. Like
Right.
you are dumb. Like you are not well read or cultured. Like, not to sound like we're some super smart cultured people, but come on, man. Like, this is a book that you read in college. This is a college like level book in the international affairs or history department. Like, like this is a book that you're gonna find in any fucking university library.
Right.
It's an
And to be clear,
academic
the book is not how to terrorism. The book is a history of terrorism.
And
Right? It's
they
like
were
reading any history book on terrorism.
and
That's
this shit's all
exactly
on, like,
this.
Fox News, and it's like, look what we found at the pro-Hamas protest. We
Right.
found a terrorism handbook. It's kind of like when the Israelis were saying that they were finding like Mein Kampf in like these houses in Gaza, and it's like, really, they're reading Mein Kampf. They're reading a very specific campaign pamphlet. Because that's what Mein Kampf is. It's a fucking campaign pamphlet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
some shit. It's like why you should vote for the National Socialist. It's not. It's not like no one's gonna get anything from reading that in a modern sense.
Right.
You know, there's some
Well,
anti-Semitic stuff in it, but it's just a fucking campaign pamphlet. So it's like it's so
even
dumb,
if they did, okay,
this
so
propaganda.
let's just say that they did find it, right? Just for shits and giggles. Are we saying that every house that they raided had a copy of Mein Kampf like on their drawer, or are we saying like they found one copy of Mein Kampf?
I think it
and
was a
suddenly
school. That's what they were, rather than a house. But still, you know,
even
it's just
still, like,
it's dumb, and just the way that.
are they studying
All right,
Mein
why don't we get into
Kampf
the
as
bill
a part of
first, and
history?
then
Because you know what? To be honest, I read parts of Mein Kampf in my university because I majored in German history, and it was kind of relevant reading, you know.
it wasn't. It was like a grade school. That was the scandal. It wasn't a university.
I see.
Um,
So what child understands Mein Kampf? Dude, this shit is
that's
unintelligible.
why it's so stupid. Like that's
Right.
why it's so dumb. That's why it's clearly not a real story.
Right.
They're not taking. They're not. They're just. There's plenty of other fucking anti-Semitic shit or things
Right.
that they could brainwash.
That they could
the
latch
kids with
onto.
than-
Right.
Than Mein Kampf.
Right.
Like, come on, man.
Kind of like that children's show that Hamas made that was like, you know, bordering on telling kids to kill Jews or fight and die and become martyrs. Do you remember that? Like
Yeah,
that's
somebody
that's
tells me
legitimately
gonna
concerning.
resonate more with an Islamic society
Right.
than a book from the a campaign pamphlet that had to do with political problems in the Weimar Republic. Man, it's just
Right.
it's just dumb, man. But people just like, you know, most people have never read Mein Kampf, and they're just like, it's the anti-Semitism manifesto. Like, it's just some dumb, low IQ things. But all right, I want to talk about this bill, and we can talk a little bit more about the protests as well. But
Yeah.
so this bill it was passed by the House of Representatives. It was overwhelming support. So it was passed by a margin of 320 to 91. And what the bill does, it directs the Department of Education to consider an overbroad definition of anti-Semitism that encompasses protected political speech when investigating allegations of discrimination under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. And the definition of anti-Semitism in this is, and I'll just read directly from it.
Yeah, let's just read them.
Contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, the media, schools, the workplace, and in the religious sphere could, taking into account the overall context, include, but are not limited to, calling for aiding or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of radical ideology or an extreme view of religion, making mendacious, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such or the power of Jews as collectives, such as, especially but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or societal institutions. So if you were to say, so like where does the
Let's pause
line
there
go?
for a second, right?
Like where does the line end right there? So all right. So there's one thing if you're just like one of these guys who finds Jews under their bed or looks for Jews under their bed.
Right.
And it's like, oh man, I stubbed my foot. It was a Jews.
Right.
Obviously there's people like that.
Right.
But then if you point out something like, oh, well, like these, you know, a coalition of Israeli lobbies are
influencing U.S. elections.
U.S. foreign policy. If you were
exactly.
to say that the Israel lobby has immense influence over U.S. foreign policy, like where does that fit within this bill?
Well, that would technically be anti-Semitism, according to this.
Yeah,
because that would be a mendacious, demonizing, or stereotypical allegation about the power of Jews as a collective. But it's just factually true, right? So you can't say factual truths because that would be a demonizing allegation against them.
Okay, so if you were to say that, And also, so you wouldn't be able to draw, okay, like Jews are disproportionately involved. They're in high media positions in banking and let's just stick with media and banking to keep it simple. So if you make that observation, then that would fall under the anti-Semitism bill.
I don't know necessarily that making an observation would be it, but if it was a mendacious or dehumanizing
or you're saying that they were controlling the media for their own
different
scheming.
story, right? Mm-hmm.
Okay, I get it. I'm just trying to be clear so we don't violate it.
Right. Well,
That's
this
the purpose of
this has to pass the Senate and it has to get signed by Biden. So I think we're good until that point.
I mean, most
let's
likely
go into this
won't be adjudicated, and it will most likely go to the Supreme Court, and it wouldn't be adjudicated until there was a ruling. But
of course. Let's go to this next one, because this is the one that I asked everyone to just put a pin in the issue. I want to read this one. Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoings committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. Let me translate this. What this part says is it would be anti-Semitic for you to accuse all Jews of something that one or a small group of Jews did, or even a group of non-Jews did. So basically placing blame on all Jews for something that all Jews didn't do. Which on the face of it makes a whole lot, like, that's fair, right? We shouldn't blanketly say all Jews are bad because Benjamin Netanyahu and his far-right government decided to bomb 80% of all of the buildings in Gaza in retaliation for October 7th, right? We should not, objectively, we should not do that, right? But what I think is wild is that they're attempting to codify into law that we shouldn't blame a group for individual actors who may or may not even be part of that in-group. So when we talk about the protests here, we're saying, oh, these protests are so bad, right? They're anti-Semitic. But there is either a small number of people who are actually anti-Semitic, but we are blaming the entire protest group as anti-Semitic. It's contradictory. Replace the word Jew in this with literally any group, and I'm fine. I'm even fine with saying like this for Jews, but this should just be a universal thing, right? There's no reason that we need to specifically single out Jews for this.
Yeah, I mean, that's just basic, moralities, that you don't blame, you don't collectively blame someone off one person in that group's crimes.
Right. We don't collectively blame all of the Germans for Hitler. Some people do.
You don't collectively blame all the Palestinians for Hamas.
Correct.
Another thing. So,
and for sure, you don't collectively blame all Jews for the act of specific Jewish groups or people. That's just wrong. So I don't understand why we need to codify this into law. This is already like protected in most of this like Civil Rights Act. But let's continue.
So the next one is this is already illegal in many European countries. Denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, including gas chambers or intentionality of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist, Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II, the Holocaust. So here's my problem with this. This is where we're getting into territory that can ruin the show and take us off air forever. No, I'm not going to start going into denial or anything. But you need to leave people room to question and study things to their own accords and make their own discoveries. I'll just leave it at that. You can't just put down a narrative and say, this has happened, this has happened, this is the way it happened, and if you say anything otherwise than the way that I explained happened, then you are evil. You can't do that, because that's going to make people doubt it. I'll just put that out. Like, if you just say you can't question anything, you can't question any of the studies or any the histories about the Holocaust, or you are evil, then that's going to make people not believe it in the long run. And you're going to see a rise in this. I'm already seeing it, man. I'm already noticing that there's going to be a rise in World War II revisionism. And I think the best thing to do is just be honest. Like, there's enough evidence of atrocities committed against Jews.
The Germans were notoriously good at documenting the shit that they did. Right? There's videos, there's pictures, there's fucking, the camps still exist to this day. You can go to them. I've been to them. Like, Holocaust denial is the dumbest thing. It is the stupidest idea because it's so easy to disprove. But we don't need to codify into law that it's illegal for you to deny the Holocaust, because it's just stupid to deny the Holocaust.
Well, look,
Let
the question
people
is,
deny the Holocaust. They're just fucking stupid. It's so easy to disprove.
What a denier, or what they'll say is that they reject the term Holocaust, because what they'll say is that it's a commercial term, because the word Holocaust didn't start being used until the 60s. In response, after a television, it was a miniseries called The Holocaust, and that's when it started publicly being called the Holocaust.
Sure, but like, also the World War One was called the Great War until we called it World War One.
Well, the point I'm trying to make, though, is that people will. There's a lot of things that you can say, even if you're saying it in good faith, that may contradict certain histories or certain common wisdoms. Like, let's just say that, or let's just say if you question this, like, basic statistics, like, what if you said that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, but none of them died in gas chambers. All of them were killed in the killing fields. Like, all of them were shot, but they weren't in gas chambers. Is that denying the Holocaust?
Well,
they were intentionally killed by the National Socialists, but they were not killed in gas chambers. They were shot. Like, is that denying?
Ignoring whether or not what you're saying is true, right? Like, just looking at the
I'm not saying what I'm saying is true or not. I'm just saying like that's.
I'm just trying to pick apart the actual statement against this law, or the way this is worded. It's saying that we are denying the fact, scope, or mechanisms. So if you are denying the mechanism, like the gas chambers, technically that's anti-Semitic. So yes, that would be illegal.
What if you did a study? What if you did a study and then you discover that it wasn't 6 million who died? It was 8 million Jews. Like, there's an evidence that it was, we have a correction. We ran the statistics, and the National Socialists killed 8 million Jews, but that all 8 million of them were killed through starvation and through just being in firing squads.
Right.
Is that denial? Even though you're actually increasing the scope of it, like, is that considered denial?
As wild as that is, I think it's still, like, legal. I'm only talking legally here. I'm not talking morally, but legally speaking, according to the way that this is written, that would be denying the fact or scope or mechanism or intentionality of the genocide of the Jewish people. I'm literally verbatim reading what it says. You would be denying the mechanisms of the genocide of the Jewish people.
Yeah, so that's why this is, I mean, this is just like an effort to, eliminate just like research. There's
Sure. I actually think there are stronger
people
points
in good faith. Yeah, there's people who study this and do it in bad faith, and basically they're looking to, disprove the the intent, and just say, okay, it was a couple of bandits who killed, who engaged in this. There are people in bad faith who make bad faith arguments to do that. But what if somebody's like really doing like Holocaust studies in the future, and they're they come up with like a discovery that contradicts something that's like well known? Like, that's that eliminates kind of like academic evolution, because things always evolve. Like research
Sure.
always evolves. There's always new discoveries that are met, that are made.
I
So
agree
it's
with you. I agree with you on principle, Henry. But I think that this one point is not necessarily the strongest point or the most wild or broadly written point that's on here. So, if, like, for the sake of it, I think we should just like continue, because there are some other
well,
ones
I
that
mean,
are just
I
so
bring that up
wild.
because that's already illegal in many European states. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like it's the idea of it is very unsettling. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like I personally don't. I've never studied the Holocaust in my life. I've never
I have
sat and read a
extensively.
book on the Holocaust. The only book I've ever read on the Holocaust was Ordinary Men by Christopher Browning. But other than that, I've read World War II books, but never any like studies on the Holocaust. So I don't have any. I don't know. Like I'm not very educated on the subject.
It's bleak
In
shit,
terms
man.
of
You
the
don't want to study
mechanisms.
it.
Like I
Trust
wouldn't
me.
be able to tell you more than 3 camps. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying, like, I just hate the idea of being labeled like some evil person because you may have, like, I was listening to Norman Finkelstein, and he was saying that there's Holocaust historians who are Jews who have contradictory theories on how most of the Jews were killed, and by their definitions, they would both be labeled Holocaust deniers. They would both call each other Holocaust deniers, even though their numbers are still the same. Like they come up with 5.2 million is a number that Norman Finkelstein uses, but it's like that's why I hate the idea of this. And yes, if you open up the discussion, there's going to be bad faith narratives, but I mean those bad faith narratives will be destroyed.
Right.
With,
They will
with
naturally
sunlight,
fall
you know what
flat
I mean?
because of how stupid they are.
What's up?
They will naturally fall flat because of how stupid they are.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Which point are we at right now?
A couple, but I think we can move on from a few of them because they're fairly straightforward. Like the one that you just highlighted, accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. That's par for the course for this one. Obviously, you shouldn't do that, but do we need to codify that into law? Accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide rather than to the interests of their own nations. Again, kind of par for the course for this one. Why do we need to codify this into specific law? Should people say this or imply this? No, but why should it be illegal to even have this idea?
So
even if
if
it's
I were
wrong,
to say,
you know?
wait, I want to stop at this one because this one's important.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if I were to say that Mark Levine and Ben Shapiro, two conservative
Zionists.
two conservative Jewish Zionists who accuse Joe Biden of being a Hamas sympathizer,
Okay.
who basically live and die for Israel. That's their number one concern. If I were to say that Mark Levine and Ben Shapiro have more loyalty towards Israel than the United States, does that violate this?
It would, even if that's your opinion, it would.
But that is my opinion. So that's a violation of this
Right.
law.
You would be
If I were to
accusing a
say that
Jewish
Sheldon Adelson, Sheldon Adelson, who says I'm a one issue voter, and that one issue is on Israel. That
Right.
when in his own words,
right.
Sheldon Adelson he's dead now, but
But if you were alive,
if he were alive, well, I mean, I guess
Does-
even if
did Sheldon Adelson have a Jewish citizenship?
I believe he was a dual citizen.
Okay.
I'm
What
pretty
about Ben Shapiro?
I'm pretty sure he was also a citizen of Israel. So if you were to say that he was buried in Israel, so yeah, right. I'm pretty sure he was buried in Israel.
I think so.
I know Robert Maxwell was.
Well, I guess the point here is saying that your opinion that those characters, your reasonable assertion that they might have placed Israel to a higher standard, or that they are more loyal to Israel than they are to their own nation, or the interests of their own nation, would be considered anti-Semitic under this definition.
Yeah, but we're doing it on a case-by-case basis. We're doing it based off someone's behavior and what they say, not collectively saying, oh, Jews are more loyal to Israel than the United States. You're saying, hey, Mark Levine or Sheldon Adelson is clearly more loyal to Israel than the United States. But the thing is,
what's funny about this is that someone like Ben Shapiro has come out against this bill quite fervently, and I want to talk about that later. And he would say,
they have to.
Why? Let's get back to that. Let's not go off track. Let's talk about that later. Sorry, we'll go down that rabbit hole.
So let me just kind of finish my thought on this. We're not. I will say that a lot of these, Ben Shapiro, in his mind, he thinks that Israeli interest and American interest are so tied together that what's good for Israel is what's good for America. Right. That's in his mind,
right? And
I'm sure that's in the mind of Mark Levine as well,
and of people that support them,
and plenty of like these hardcore Zionists. Like, what's good for Israel is what's good for the United States, which I don't agree with. I think that the United States and Israel have different interests, and their interests actually contradict each other in most cases. But so I'm going to be generous with what they think, or I don't know what they truly think, who knows, but that's like my perception of it. But still, I mean, I think it's like clear, like there's some neoconservative types who are clearly more loyal to Israel's priorities and America's priorities. Like, it's not even a question. So that falls under the anti-Semitism law.
It would, yes.
Or that would violate it.
Yep. 100%.
And these don't really affect us,
No.
This affects college schools, like where these ideas are supposed
to be. Because there are legal and also financial implications for like breaking this law, right? So what they're trying to do, and we'll get back to the point of this all, but what they're trying to do is utilize this codified definition of anti-Semitism so that these universities can comply with the Title VI rules. And I'm going to butcher this shit, but the Title VI under the Civil Rights Act, it prevents discrimination, right? Specifically in settings where you're going to be receiving government funding. A lot of these universities receive government funding, but the quandary that these universities have is like, oh shit, we're having all these protests. Some of this shit that's happening on these protests feel kind of like discrimination, right? They feel like anti-Semitism, but anti-Semitism as a legal definition wasn't and isn't defined anywhere. So this bill is trying to define it, but the way that they're trying to define it is in such a overly broad way, and in a way that like any reasonable person can contradict or find very easy, places where it's just like, this doesn't add up, that it effectively becomes a curtail on free speech that has anything to do with Judaism, Israel, Jewishness, anything like even remotely adjacent to that suddenly becomes in the crosshairs of these legal ramifications. And so it gives them, the universities, the legal definitional space to say, we have to shut down these protests because they are against Title VI. This is discriminatory. This is no longer protected, free speech. This is now discrimination, right? So that's the issue at crux here. So I want to skip a few of these because I want to go to just the juiciest one, in my opinion.
Well, no, I think the next one, no, I think these are important. I don't think we should skip them.
Okay, let's go through them.
So the next one is denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination, claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor.
So, in this case, making the claim that the state of Israel is a ethno-state.
Yes,
would be both accurate and anti-Semitic.
Yeah, that's important because that's when they're teaching, in these Middle Eastern classes where these ideas and where these kids learn about Israel, and many of these professors are more sympathetic to Palestine or are very they're anti-Zionist because that's really what they're protesting. These professors who teach this, most of them are left wing. Most of them are probably Marxist. This is what they're teaching those students to be like. This is their crux of their. This is the crux of like the left wing messaging that Israel is a settler colonial state,
right?
And that it's a racist state, right. And that it's inclusive, and
not inclusive.
Excuse me, exclusive. It's exclusive, not inclusive.
Right. Correct.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the major criticism of it. So what they're doing is they're striking the main leg of the argument that are made by left-wing critics of Israel. And come on, let's just look at the reality of it. What is Israel? Israel is a state for Jews. I don't understand what other way can you describe it as a exclusive ethnic
well, obviously
state
the detraction from that would be like, oh no, it's a Western style democracy and there are plenty of Arabs that live there. But that's just tokenizing the minority groups inside of Israel, right? That's like saying I have a black friend, therefore I'm not racist. I think the founding principles by definition make Israel an ethno-state. That's what its point is.
It's a racial state, like it is, right. And you can
whether or not that is racist, I think it is a fair debate to have. Jury's out for me. I don't think necessarily I would go as far as to say that Israel as an existing state is a racist state. I can say that I am uncomfortable with ethno-states because I think it enables racism. But all of what I just said right there would be considered anti-Semitic under this law.
Listen, I believe that if a group wants to get together and create their own state, and there be a requirement of some sort of requirement of either belonging to the religion or ethnicity to be part of that state, that's fine. Like I have no problems with ethno states or racial states or anything like that. The problem with the core problem, the problem that we see today is that the ethno state was created on a place where other people who weren't part of that group lived, and right. Those people still live in the state, and those people are, obviously still within the state as subjects in the West Bank and I guess Gaza. Some people go, Gaza's not occupied, but it is. Israel controls what goes in and what goes out of the state.
Well, so I think technically speaking,
just eliminates
Gaza is right now occupied for sure.
The core argument that most left wingers will have against the state of Israel, and I don't think that where does anti-Semitism even that? There's nothing anti-Semitic about that statement. You're just saying that the state.
The founding principle of the state was to create a racially segregated state. Yeah,
I have no problem saying the the birth of the United States was a racist endeavor. Most people would not. I would say it. I'm not even a left wing person who usually would go to that argument, but the United States was extremely racist in its creation and its expansion. In the way it treated Native Americans, in the way it treated blacks. It was extremely racist. I have zero problem saying that the U.S. was a racist endeavor, but you can't.
That wouldn't be illegal under this bill. Only criticizing Israel would be illegal under this bill.
And it's just crazy. It's crazy that you're not allowed to use any of the points. The fair points that criticize the state at all. That's basically what this bill is doing. So what are they going to do? So basically if you're in class, if you're in Columbia and you're in your Middle Eastern studies class, and they say that, you know, the they just actually just like read, they teach from a book from that is not even controversial. I mean, you're going to come to the conclusion like, oh, this state was built on, you know, the land of people who didn't belong to that ethnic group, and they were pushed out of the state. Mm-hmm. So like you can just come to the natural conclusion like, oh, that was kind of racist. Like,
yeah.
Like if somebody feels uncomfortable, if someone feels uncomfortable with that reality or that history, like what are they supposed to do? Just have a book burning? Just like start burning the books into the score, like, oh, we got to take all the Middle Eastern books and burn them in the school lawn. Like it's fucking West Virginia after a football game. Like, you kidding me? Like, it's nuts.
Yeah.
That is one of the craziest things I think on the bill, because that's the one that will be most applicable. That will be the one that creates the biggest hamstrings, the biggest problems on college campuses, because now we're just talking about what you will conclude from reading any book on like World War I history, even, you know, like anything on Sykes-Picot or anything. Like, come on, like this is nuts. It's totally nuts. That this would be applied. And then okay, let's go to the next one.
Yep. So applying a double standard by requiring of it a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nations. So basically saying, there's a contemporary argument for this. It's like, you know, nobody else in the West has to warn their enemies that they're about to bomb them, but Israel, we're expected or, you know, required to like warn us. So like this is a double standard, right? Or like the more cliche argument and the easier one to make would be that, oh, every country in the world is able to defend themselves, but when Israel defends themselves, they're not able to defend themselves, right? That's where this argument, the easy button version of this one is. Putting aside that nobody's saying that Israel's not allowed to, I don't think anyone is saying that Israel's not allowed to defend themselves in this context, especially in these protests. Setting that aside, the idea is that we cannot apply a double standard to Israel that wouldn't apply, or that we wouldn't expect from any other democratic nation. And it's like, okay, sure.
Well, that doesn't happen. Don't worry. No one. There's no double standard. Like, the problem that people run into with Israel is when they treat them like a normal country. Mm. That's when you clash with all of their war crimes. When you start to expect from them, like, doing things that like the United States used to do in Iraq, taking extra steps to prioritize the safety of civilians. The U.S. we didn't do anything like this in Iraq. We killed a lot of people, intentionally, and also intentionally through bombings, but nothing like on this scale. You know, we put our soldiers at risk to avoid civilian casualties, and the problem is, this is what John Mearsheimer said. John Mearsheimer has a book called The Israel Lobby, and he says the problem is that people were calling us anti-Semitic when we wrote this book. And the thing is that me and Stephen Walt is the co-author of the book. What we were trying to do is just treat Israel like a normal country. And that's all we did. It's just, we treat it like every other country. And that runs into, that itself just runs into so much resistance, because there's no other country in the world that can get away with this type of behavior. There's no.
Do you know of any like specific arguments that are made in Mearsheimer's book to that effect? Areas.
I mean, basically, the book is that these. I mean, it's in the title. They're able to get, the Israeli state can get away with all this is because of the enormous influence of the Israel lobby, and, you know, standard rules don't really apply. There once was a time when This wasn't. This honestly is kind of a new phenomenon of the Israelis being able to do whatever they want. This wasn't the case 40 years ago. This wasn't the case 30 years ago. This wasn't even the case when George Bush was elected, Jr., not senior. George Bush Sr. would actually stand up to the Israelis. Ronald Reagan would stand up to them to some degree as well. But when even George Jr. stood up to them sometimes, not really though. It's really been the past two administrations that have been just like so it's like a relatively new phenomenon where there's zero criticism allowed, like just none. It's like the Soviet Union. Like there's no dissent on this issue allowed in Washington. But 40 years ago there was actual people who you could actually dissent on it. Ronald Reagan famously called Menachem Begin and said, "Hey, like if you keep on bombing Lebanon, then the face of Israel is going to be a kid with his arms blown off, and you're creating a new Holocaust." And he says, after the call, he says, "I intentionally used the word Holocaust." So there was a time when American politicians would say, "Hey, like we're the United States and you're the satellite. Like you can't do this. It's not the other way around." But let's go next point.
So this one's my favorite, and by my favorite, like just probably the juiciest one. Using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, e.g., claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel, to characterize Israel or Israelis. So this one's kind of funny because this one gets a lot of press. As a matter of fact, I was listening to Ben Shapiro on this because I found it interesting that he was opposed to this. But he was in his own right, he was trying to explain how, according to the New Testament, Jews actually did kill Jesus, or at least were complicit in or aided and abetted the murder of Jesus Christ, right? And we're talking about Ben Shapiro here. Like he's clearly an avowed Jew. He doesn't hide this fact. And he's basically said, like, yeah, the Christian Bible is now anti-Semitic, according to this. Which I think is just fucking hilarious.
So obviously the context matters on something like this.
Of course.
So if you are, if the context matters, so reading the gospel is not anti-Semitic,
but making a cartoon.
If you're a Christian, right. Then you believe, or most Christians believe this, is that the Jews were primarily responsible for the death of Jesus.
Right.
And that's part of Christianity. Like there's no like changing the scripture. That's just Pontius Pilate did not want to kill Jesus. He reluctantly killed them because the Jews threatened with revolt. Now, I mean, if you're not Christian, then that doesn't matter. Like you don't believe in that. But if you're a Christian, that's a major tenet of the religion.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into like the whole reason why that's like symbolic, but that's just part of the New Testament. If you are doing, and I think where this gets at is, Passion Plays in like in like 16th century Spain, where they were, doing these plays to revel up anti-Semitism and get people upset with Jews.
Forget obviously 16th century Spain, like fucking Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ.
Yeah, but even Mel, that book wasn't. I mean, not book. That movie wasn't meant to like trauma. It was just like a rendition of the Gospel of Matthew.
I don't know. Mel Gibson's pretty ragingly anti-Semitic on his own. So
I mean, he got him drunk and he told people how he really felt, but I mean, the movie itself, I don't. Well, it's not an anti-Semitic movie. It doesn't.
Well, according to this,
it's just
according to
it's
this,
just but
according to this line, that would be characterizing Israel.
If you say something like F Jews, you kill Jesus, killer, okay, then that's where you can draw the line. That is an anti-Semitic thing to say. If you start being, or it's like you guys drink the blood of kids and shit like that. That's obviously
blood libel part, right? Yeah.
I didn't know what blood libel was until like a month ago when people started saying it. I thought I didn't know. I had no idea blood libel had like a anti-Semitic connotation, but
well, I definitely find it very interesting that like a couple years ago, QAnon started, basically doing accusing blood libel again, and this has been going on for literally thousands of years at this point. But what I guess the problem with this bill as it's worded, or more specifically the definitions of anti-Semitism as is worded according to this bill, is that it's broad enough, and it is not specific enough where your reasonable point of like the context matters can come into question for something as simple as literally the Gospels.
Yeah, it's
so like the next film that is created about for the next Easter film that comes out next year, because I feel like every year there's a new one, right? And Jesus is killed. Context be damned if for some reason we think that this is characterizing Israel or Israelis in any negative light because they were complicit in or the large contributing factor in the killing of Jesus, then that would be considered anti-Semitic. And if that film had any ties to any governmental agency or receiving funding by any place like that, then there could be repercussions for that.
Yeah, well, you got to remember this is in the context of the Department of Education. So this is not something that's going to. We made jokes about this podcast being illegal. It's not going to impact us. Which most likely, I presume, it's going to pass in the Senate, right? Like, why wouldn't it?
I don't know.
The Senate,
I don't think
the
it
U.S. Senate is just as pro-Israel. I mean, the House is crazy. The Congress is nuts. Like, they're even.
I think the House is nuts. I think most of the people that signed on to this bill didn't read the bill. I think most of these people saw the headlines, said like, this is a bill to codify anti-Semitism into law, and we want to codify that so that we can make sure that we don't have anti-Semitism in this country. And a bunch of fucking plebeians decided, yep, sure, vote yes, and didn't
most likely. But I heard, I heard a U.S. congressman, a Republican U.S. congressman, on Judge Andrew Napolitano's podcast, and I think Andy Briggs. Oh, man, I forget his name, and he voted against it. And is he on that list that you have of people who voted against it?
Oh, I had the full list, but I only pulled out a couple. So let's go there. So it was 7. I can pull it back up again, but 70 Democrats and 21 Republicans voted against it. It was overwhelmingly, it won 320 to 91, right? So 320 Democrats and Republicans combined decided that this was a good idea. Trying to find the link that I had here that had all of the people, but I can call out some highlights for you. So
Andy Biggs. So Andy Biggs voted against it, and he was saying on the show that basically he was explaining it to his colleagues, and they were like, "Yeah, you're making some good points, but we're gonna vote for it anyway." So they knew, like he was, because he was actively like lobbying and with his colleagues to vote against it.
Right, and
like,
there was
we get your points, but we're
going to do it anyway. Right,
we're going to do it anyway.
Why?
So
why? Because it. I think it's a little bit of both, right? It's some of these people who straight up just didn't even read the bill, and they were just like, "Yeah, sure, let's sign on to that." But then the other part of the people who actually read it and understood it as such would still vote for it because their base didn't read it or wouldn't understand it as such, and their base would be seeing them voting against and what looks like on the face of it a bill that stops anti-Semitism, which is not what this is. by the way, right? But like some
It's a
plebeian
bill
voter
that
in some random district of fucking, Andy Biggs is going to look at Andy Biggs as like, well, why didn't you vote for that? You're stupid. I'm not going to vote for you anymore. But I mean, when you look at the people who agreed that this bill is a bad idea by voting against it, just like the people on both sides of this, it's wild who's agreeing. On the Republican side, obviously Andy Biggs, you pointed them out, but Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Republicans have voted against this. Democrats, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Maxine Waters. I mean, like,
it's the far right and the far left alliance.
Seriously, it's a strange intersection of like these popular right and left wing people, popular or infamous, depending on which way you want to look at them, right?
Well, if Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar voted for it, their ass would be voted out, because they represent primarily Muslim districts in Michigan and
naturally, right?
In Minnesota, and then AOC kind of has to, because she is she has to show some camaraderie with the college campuses.
I don't think you're giving them enough credit. I think if Andy Biggs or Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene can look at this bill and say it's wrong, I think all four of those Democrats can say it's wrong for the exact same reasons. I don't think it has anything to do with their
that's fair enough. But
to hammer this point in a bit further, like outside of just the Republicans and Democrats in the House that are disagreeing with it, people outside of the political sphere, or at least outside of the elected political sphere, people like Ben Shapiro and Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, who basically never agree on anything, are saying the same thing, that this bill is unconstitutional and the definition of anti-Semitism that it's putting forward is overly broad. Of course, those two people approach this issue from way different angles, right? Like Ben Shapiro is trying to say that we should get rid of Title VI altogether, right? And Cenk is just saying, like, if we're going to give special treatment to the Jews, then we should also give special treatment to other small groups like Muslims, right? But they both arrive at the same agreement, right? The same point is that this bill is an encroachment on free speech, and that the definition of anti-Semitism is overly broad.
Well, yeah, because if media figures were supporting this, and I don't know, maybe Ben Shapiro has some level of principle, but on this, on like freedom of speech, I mean, certainly not with his own employees, but I guess, he doesn't fire and hire, I guess, but like the Daily Wire as a whole obviously has, I think I heard him say there's an Overton window, and if you step out of it, you're gone. And I guess you do have the right to do that if you're a media company. When,
sure,
of course, I'm talking about the firing of Candace Owens.
Right. Well, but private companies are allowed to do that. That's not a...
Well, yeah. I mean, just if we were talking, let's just say if Bro History had like another show that we started sponsoring, and all of a sudden they started saying, wacky shit all day, and maybe we would tolerate, like, okay, the moon landing was fake, that's fine. Whatever, conspiracy, yeah, sure, that's fine. But if someone's like, if someone started doing like straight up like Holocaust denial stuff, I'd be like, all right, you're done. Like there would be a limit,
right,
of people that we would probably continue to work with.
Mm-hmm.
The Overton window would probably be larger than most people. Like we would allow communists and also like very hard right wingers, but but nevertheless, all right, maybe there is some level of principle for these folks, or for whatever political reason, or I think a lot of them are just kind of more in touch. All right, here's what they have in common. To some degree, that they're all political gadflies, where they're known for being a little bit of an outsiders. I mean, I don't really think that's true in most cases. I think maybe just Thomas Massey, he's the one who's been consistent with voting against foreign aid and all that. But still, the overwhelmingly Congress has passed this, and it
still has to go through the Senate.
Like them support it, Like they're all just like doing it with such excitement. Maybe the Senate is seeing the reaction from the public and they're just like, okay, maybe we shouldn't pass this. But this bill, I think what it does, it has a I mean, I think the purpose here is really, again, to limit speech on it's really a fear tactic in college campuses. They're trying to make it scary to teach like Middle Eastern history. Like that's really what it is to me. Like I don't think they're going to start going after people for thought crimes and things like that. But they're just trying to make it scarier to teach Middle Eastern history.
I think they want a legal loophole to put down anti-Israel protests or
exactly.
pro-Palestinian
That's exactly what
protests.
it is. They want a legal loophole
because as it stands right now, protests are protected speech under the First Amendment. But if we can somehow make a codified law that would say, okay, except for anti-Semitic shit, anti-Semitic protests are legally allowed. And then they could just say that this protest is anti-Semitic, because you're gonna find at least one of those many points that we went through pop up in these protests. You're gonna find at least one. In many cases, probably many of them.
Yeah.
So that'll give them kind of the out, because like truly, like we have free speech, right? We have the freedom to say or think or hold the opinion of pretty much anything. There are some curtailments to free speech, right? Some legal curtailments of free speech. Like you can't do slander, right? You can't slander someone. There are repercussions for that. You can't incite violence or incite someone to kill themselves. You can't do that. There are repercussions for that. You can't have child pornography, right? Child pornography is not free speech. So there are exceptions to free speech, and I think by creating this law, we're creating an exception to the way that it's written right now, practically anything negative against Israel or Jews, no matter how reasonable or accurate, it's gonna fall into one of these buckets. And it does cover all of the bad faith arguments and bad faith, truly anti-Semitic shit. It does cover all that stuff too. But it's just so broad that it includes a bunch of other shit that's not objectively just not anti-Semitic.
Well, what this is doing in my fear is that this will have the opposite effect, and it will actually generate anti-Semitism.
Sure.
And we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago when we were reading the Thomas Sowell essay. I feel like this heavy-handedness is going to cause a backlash, and I see it, man. I see it online, man. I'm on Twitter. I'm not an engaged Twitter user. I don't really post anything, but I do surf around and follow people. I see what's being said. I can feel the tension rising, and I don't like it, and I don't want it to increase. And it's a reaction to this type of shit. It's a reaction to, it's like the overall, it's the reaction to, we're doing what we want, and if you don't fucking like it, then you're a fucking evil piece of shit. Like that's kind of like what people are reacting to. And we're doing it with we're doing what we want with your money, and if you don't like it, you're a fucking piece of shit. Like imagine being told that. And then the other thing, this is not just happening, there's a TikTok ban, right?
Right.
The primary reason why they're banning TikTok is because the U.S. can't really control the narrative on it like other platforms.
Oh, I always assumed that the reason why was because the Chinese are spying on us.
No, man, it has to do with with the and this is not speculation. I'm not making this up. Mitt Romney was talking to Anthony Blinken the other day. I don't know. I think it was at like the John McCain Center.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine what's going to be said at the John McCain Center. And he was, they were talking about TikTok, and they were talking about like, oh, like the Israelis kind of dropped the ball on the PR part of it. Young people don't love Israel as much. It's because of the PR. And they were talking about TikTok. It's like, they were like, can you believe that on TikTok it's more pro-Palestine and pro-Israel? And Mitt Romney said, like, that's why we're banning it. So, and this has come from other.
Cut on a hot mic or some shit like that. Like
isolated.
How did this come out?
What's that?
How did this conversation?
It's like open. It's like people are open. Like, so do you ever hear Nikki Haley talk about like TikTok?
No.
She'll say something like, if you're on TikTok, you become 6% more anti-Semitic for every 30 minutes you watch it.
That
like
is
there's
hilarious.
like a stat. Like for every 30 minutes you're on TikTok, your anti-Semitism increases by 6%. This
I don't
is
even
the
know how they
narrative that's
calculate
going
that.
around. This is the narrative that goes around in Washington, that you can quantify anti-Semitism by the amount of time you spend on TikTok. This is what they're saying to each other. This is what someone told her to say. That's the scary part. Somebody worked with her because she obviously has no brain. If you ever heard her speak, she barely has a functioning brain.
There goes another one of those people with a fucking worm in their head, right?
She has a worm in her head.
Yeah.
If you saw the presidential debate, the primary debates, Vivek Ramaswamy, this was probably one of the best things I've ever seen in a debate. It beat any of Trump's stuff from 2016. He said to her, this woman wants to send money to Ukraine, but she can't name 4 provinces or oblasts in Ukraine. She can't name 4 of them. And she wants to send, she wants to put military in she wants to go to war with Russia over this. And then they just did like a shot of her, and she was just silent because she didn't know. And I'm like, come on, you can't name 4 fucking provinces in Ukraine.
I just did in my head, and I'm like, can I? I had to test myself for a second.
Come on, you have Crimea. You can use Crimea. Come on, you got Crimea. Right.
How about the ones that separated, right?
Kharkov,
Luhansk, Donetsk.
Like you can't say you can't even name the contested territories that Russia annexed, and you are a lobbyist for more funding to Ukraine,
right?
And you can't. You can use Crimea as one of the oblast,
right? Just that's an option.
Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, Zaporozhye. You can't name any. Like, come on.
Right.
Like, you are supposedly looking at this every single day. This is something that you're passionate about. And you know nothing. You know nothing. She says that watching TikTok for 30 minutes makes you 6% more anti-Semitic. Again, I shit you not. Some lobbyist or some think tank that works with her wrote this up to her. They wrote this for her.
She was like, wow, that's a great stat.
Okay. She was like, okay. And then she said it on TV where millions of people watched it. This is not as smart as a lobby as it used to be. Like, this is the old Israel lobby used to be a lot smarter. They used to be a lot more savvy when these talking points are dumb. They're dumb, and everyone can see through them.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious that the reason why they're moving forward to ban TikTok is because they can't control political narratives on it as well as they could with other narratives, especially foreign policy narratives. It doesn't necessarily even have to be about Israel or Israel Palestine.
That's just the topic right now, right?
They're against. Let's just say that Elon Musk like I have a theory that Elon Musk is the reason why he's buddy with one of the reasons why he bought TikTok was to influence foreign governments, like
you mean Twitter?
elections and foreign, Twitter. I mean, one of the reasons why he bought TikTok. Well, I'm saying it again. One of the reasons why he bought Twitter is to influence foreign elections, so he can like buy their lithium for Tesla. Like,
I wouldn't put it past him. That might have been like the 15th reason.
I think. I mean, come on, man. He's a savvy business guy. But this, like, he was a huge supporter of Malay, and Malay was about to join BRICS, or Argentina was about to join BRICS, and then now they canceled that, and then they're providing all their lithium to the United States, and Elon Musk, enough is all economics, and he's not, he's a socialist. Oh, he's really small. So I think that there's all of this. You have to cancel all the ideology, like everything you think about ideology. It just goes out the window when it comes to Washington and like real people in power. They're not thinking about. They're using ideology is a way to justify, like a mental step for them to justify what they're doing, in their head and into other people.
Yeah.
But it's all about just like patronage networks. Like who's the most powerful person? Like who can pay you enough? Like there's all these progressives in Congress who are like super pro-Israel, and like they're normally they're really there's like everything else they're really progressive on. Like what's the guy in the Bronx? Richie Torres. I think it's Richie Torres.
Yeah.
I was looking at his campaign contributions. AIPAC gave him like $1.5 million.
That's a crazy amount of money.
That's a shitload of money.
Yeah.
So they just bribed him to be. They're just bribing these politicians to be like as hardcore Zionists as possible.
You know what's crazy about that? What's crazy
ahead.
about that is that like personal campaign contributions, like I think you can only give like $7,000 to a particular candidate as an individual, but these groups can get away with $1.5 million. That's nuts.
Yeah, like they're just straight up bribing these like their natural position would be the be more pro-Palestine, but they're just getting bribed. It's so funny. But yeah, man, this is crazy shit.
Well,
and there's already a big backlash, so that's a good thing. But just the fact that this was tried, it's like it just shows you how dumb.
Technically succeeded, right? In the House.
Yeah, they did succeed. We'll see what happens in the Senate, but it just shows you how dumb these the people who are in political positions in this country, like they are dumb.
They have worms in
these
their
are
brains.
idiots. Let's go back to the major theme. They have worms in their brain, and their brains are gone.
Right.
They're basically mind flayers, man. They're all just they're mind flayers. The mind flayers from Dungeons and Dragons, right? That's where it's from.
Yeah.
Or
the Netflix series, the fuck. Why am I forgetting the name of that Netflix series? With the kids and the fucking.
That's Stranger Things.
Thank you, Stranger Things.
But that's
Mind Flayer.
They name all the villains
after Dungeons and Dragons
characters. So like
not everybody's a nerd and plays Dungeons and Dragons, but probably more people have seen Stranger Things. I digress. Though same shit.
Yeah, they take the bad guys and they're like, oh, that's like Vecna, which is a bad person in Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, it's amazing, man. All right, we had a whole other section on this, which we were not going to get to, obviously, today because it's late, on the actual history, where we were going to do the origins of anti-Semitism in the 20th century, where we read a lot of Hannah Arendt in her book, The Origins of Totalitarianism. But we're obviously not going to get to that because this will be another hour at least.
Yeah, probably.
And then we have another episode. We actually have episodes in the pipeline, which is
great for change. Right.
Because we've been running on just like life travel and stuff, but now we actually have some decent stuff in our pipeline. We have this. Then we're doing an episode of MEK in Iran, and then there's some other episodes too. But yeah, this was just like a contemporary event that I felt like I couldn't not speak about, or we couldn't not speak about. So, you want to wrap this up?
Yeah.
Before we violate this bill?
Yeah. I think we've already torn it up a million times.
Yeah, I think we've already violated it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks again for listening to another episode of Bro History. It's Henry Zamota and Danny Abdel-Jabbar. If you want to subscribe to the show, just subscribe to it. You know where that button is. And then you can rate and review the podcast on whatever platform that you listen to. And you can also join our Patreon if you want to give us money. Okay. Peace, guys.
Peace.